This episode is brought to you by Mortgage Workflow Partners and the Mastering Encompass series, both for users as well as administrators. You can find out all the information about it over at masteringencompass.com. Also, if you'd like to check out what we're doing on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel using the @MasteringEncompass handle. And make sure you stay up to date on all the information, not just with podcasts, but also video content that we bring to you as often as possible. Now let's get on to the episode. Hello. Thanks everybody for joining. My name is Larry Bailey. This is Mortgage Workflow Partners hosting Mastering Encompass. This is a Tuesday event workshop. We are meeting every other Tuesday, normally around 4 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Eastern, talk for about an hour, sometimes a little bit less, usually never more. And this series from now through the end of the year is all workshop. And specifically, today's workshop topic is all about seamless starts, application and borrower docs done right. Before I get into the details, while folks are coming in, first of all, thanks very much for joining me. I know you probably always have something else going on, so I appreciate you spending your time live with me. And for those watching replay over at masteringencompass.com, thanks for doing that too. So the important part here is to reframe, again, why are we doing this? Why am I doing this whole workshop series? And the reason why is because I've found consistently that companies are who are using Encompass fall into a few different categories, but by and large, the companies that had Encompass implemented, if it was some time ago, workflows have changed. Obviously, the technology has changed. The market's changed, right? If the one thing constant in mortgage is change. And the other cohort, so to speak, are folks that are either thinking about completely blowing up their existing Encompass and they want to start over because it's that chaotic. Or maybe you're the type of person who is thinking about launching your company either brand new with Encompass, or you're thinking about switching over into Encompass from another LOS. We've got a few companies that we're actually implementing right now where they are coming from other LOS platforms. So my whole point for doing this is if I were creating a mortgage company and I was going to use the Encompass platform, which I would not use anything else personally, how would I do it? And so the two previous events that happened in June, one was talking about leads and how to manage those leads. And the one we did just before here was talking about qualification, pre-approvals, early wins, things like that. And so today's all about seamless starts. So the context here is that I'm going to be talking about, we've gotten the borrower, they've gotten pre-qualified, but now they've either decided to go forward with the refinance situation they've got going on, or they found a property. And now you've triggered TRID, right? Or whatever your application status means for you if you're doing non-TRID loans. But basically, you've got to get the application complete, and you've got to collect borrower documents. And there's philosophies around that. The one golden rule here is everything's native Encompass. Everything. I fully believe that. There was a huge pendulum swing over to believing technology comes before workflow. That is entirely wrong in every shape of the word. Workflow always comes first. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I got into this big, long thing. Matt Van Fossen from the Big POS had a comment about that. Mike Kelleher had some more comments about Encompass and those kinds of things. And it's not like I'm an Encompass fanboy. I just know what works. And I know, and I'm passionate about making sure people have the right information in the right context. And I also know that most folks who have an experience with Encompass that is not memorable in a good way is because the workflows are jacked up. Because some decisions were made to create settings in the past that make no sense today. And nobody has the ability or the desire to make the changes that are required to make things better. And so how do I know this is true? Because Mortgage Workflow Partners, we do nothing but workflow reviews. We actually go through and I stand up in the room and I say, this is what we got to do. if you want to have a successful company. So if you ever want to see these replays, head over to masteringcompass.com. They'll be over there in the resource center, and replay them at your heart's content. So last thing I'll say here in the warm-up is this is a community meeting, right? And so normally I end up doing all the talking, which is fine. That's what I get paid for. But it's really open for you to ask questions. So feel free to use the chat. Feel free to raise your hand. I can take you off mute, whatever. This is your information to absorb, and I want to make sure it's done in a format that makes sense for you. So there you go. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about a company that doesn't exist, almost existed like that much. Like I almost started a mortgage company 2 years ago, and at just at the last second, it didn't feel right. And I'll probably do it at some point in the future, truthfully. I'll probably go back into retail once I get done building up mortgage workflow partners and handing it off to somebody else to run, because it's a lot. It's a lot. So I want somebody else to do the hard work eventually. And I'll probably go back to retail lending, which is what gave me the idea for doing this whole workshop in the first place. All right, so let's talk about seamless starts and what does it look like to complete an application. I'm going to be using, as I said, Native Encompass. And so when you think about Native Encompass, one of the things that you need to think about, of course, is the idea of leveraging Consumer Connect. It's important for me to put things in a particular way because my mind thinks a lot of times in the opposite of normal people. What I mean to say is I like to ask, why does it not work? What is it not? And so as an example, like when companies, somebody's asking me like, why should I do business with mortgage workflow partners? And I'm like, well, why would you not do business with mortgage workflow partners? And they're like, well, I don't know. I said, well, do you want technology to be built for you? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's not us. Right. So when we talk about Consumer Connect, if you go down the path of thinking Consumer Connect is a point of sale solution, you'd be mistaken. It is not a point of sale solution. What is it? And so when you think of Consumer Connect, it's two things. And number one, it's an online application. And number two, it's a way to collect and receive documents from your borrowers. And then you might be thinking, well, what's a POS, a point of sale? And my general answer is, it's a good question. Initially, back way back when Encompass only had like LO Connect websites. Again, it was an online application, but it just was a poor experience. So companies like Simple Nexus, now Encino, came out with a super strong experience for the borrower. Mike Kelleher had one too, called Easy Loan Apps or something, and they just killed it. They did great, but we don't need this now. I don't need other systems now, and from my perspective. And so the reason why is because within Consumer Connect, I can create, again, the application that I'm looking for. I can create as many workflows as I want. And so if I wanted to take this workflow and I wanted to create a different workflow, I can do one for a customizable workflow, traditional workflow, or home equity workflow if I'm using EPPS. Now, you might be asking, wait a minute, Larry, mine doesn't look like that. And I want to remind everybody, if you missed this before, this particular domain is set up to use the loan application customization tool, LACT. If you don't know what that is, go back in the release notes, look it up, or use the help feature, whatever. But effectively, that allows you to create your own unique customized workflow based upon all of these features. So today's not a training session, so I'm not going to go through this, but I do want you to be aware that when you make this choice of enabling your LACT, you're given this ability to create, customizable or traditional. So if I create a traditional workflow, this is what you're used to seeing, right? Where you can customize your services and you can customize which questions come up. Gang, for me, this is pure gold. The reason why this is pure gold is because when I create this new workflow, I can create this workflow to be 5 questions or 50 or 100. I can create custom questions in here that map to custom fields if I want. I can even run through different services that I want to make sure are leveraged in this particular workflow, but not all of them. So not only that, when I come over into this particular workflow, I can define these workflows by different domains. So why is all this important for me when I'm talking about a seamless start and taking an application? When I'm running my company, and tell me if this isn't true, show of hands, who remembers Rocket? Push button, get mortgage. Anybody remember that? Right? Probably everybody. Okay. You really didn't get a mortgage when you clicked the button. You got tied to a call center who interviewed you just like any other loan officer would, right? It was a marketing move, and it was brilliant, and it's been repeated. And the reason why I bring this up is because I can come into Consumer Connect and I can create as many different domains as I want. And I can even customize that domain, which means I can create co-branded sites. I can create sites that have the native mobile app. Native mobile app is through Google or iOS. And the idea here is that I can create this experience, and you can too, as just an average person, that allows you to give your borrowers the ability to do what you want them to do, so that if you have just pre-approvals, those are the questions you can answer. If you want them to complete a full application, you can do that too. And that's all in here. And so what I wanted to make sure is that, when you go through your the sequence, I'm coming in and I'm making sure that I'm using everything within Consumer Connect, and I'm pitching different websites to different spots on the internet or in my marketing agreement relationships, so that when that application comes in, not only does the borrower get that unique workflow experience, the unique branding experience, but then they also get the specific workflow that I want. And inside of Encompass, that workflow ID passes through to the loan file. And the reason why this is important for me is because knowing how that workflow runs, I can choose within this workflow, if I have the ability to have the borrower run services here. I don't really subscribe to that. I don't like this personally. I would rather make sure that when that workflow comes in, I can leverage workflow engine rules, which we're going to get to here in a moment. I can leverage workflow rules to do all kinds of really cool stuff with regards to automated document requests, automated document sending. You can also do automated services. And again, today was like a hot day. I don't know, you guys probably don't watch LinkedIn, especially because, again, you got real jobs. But, there's a whole big thing today that, again, Matt Van Fossen and I are like pairing up, because we also presented on stage at ICE in March. He runs Absolute Mortgage. He runs Big POS. And we're trying to help elevate everybody's understanding of what's possible. He's doing it firsthand with Absolute, which is beautiful. If I had my own company, I'd be doing the same damn thing. In that, leveraging what's here. Now, again, he uses Big POS, so totally different up front because it's a POS. But the idea is, natively speaking, you can come in and modify this. If you have any questions at all about how to leverage this, or use cases, or how this fails, you obviously just ask in the community, ask here in this today. I'll also say one important thing that kind of gets lost in the mix. Companies that are leveraging third parties like nCino or Blend or Big POS even, that doesn't mean that you can't use this. And so I've got clients at Mortgage Workflow Partners. I've got clients that actually have branches that come in, pardon me, and the lender actually allows the branch to continue using the POS that the branch is used to using, whether it's Blend or nCino or Big POS or Consumer Connect. All of these systems can cohabitate your Encompass environment simultaneously. Now, it doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it's crystal clear, but it is very possible to do that. So for those that are, those that are watching this, if you're inspired to try to go see what loans don't you really need to use something you're paying extra for, just carve out carve out a spot for business to go explore this, because one of the things that doesn't happen often is you have the ability to create as many websites as you want, to give as many different workflows as you want, and also allow you to set to use the native mobile app. That's what I would do, and that's what I'm encouraging you to do. All right. I'm watching the chat. I'm watching the Q&A. I'm watching the hands. I don't see any questions on this. Again, this is not an advertisement. This is just, I'm just telling you the way that I use it. And when customers come to me to say, Larry, I'm tired of paying this other company extra money per loan on top of what I'm already paying for, why am I not using this? I look at their workflow first, and I look at their situation second, and then we set this up in a little user test case, get people comfortable, and then I show them what's possible in Encompass Web. So I'm going to go there next. As a side note, just so everybody's on the same page, if you didn't get the memo, this weekend, 25.3 is dropping into test. And so if you don't know how to run test and production on your machine at the same time, check out the training resource videos in the Resource Center. I shot a whole video on how to do that. And then the production instance of that's due to drop on the weekend of August 9th, as far as I know right now. And why is this important for me to bring up as I roll into Encompass Web? Well, because more and more features are being pushed into desktop that leverage Encompass Web, namely services management, right? And so just, guys, do me a favor, just make sure you've got all of your vendors, all your service vendors on EPC. It's July. This Partner Connect SDK will be shut off on August 31st. If you haven't already signed your SDK transitional waiver with ICE, please do that. Even if you don't have any SDK tech, please get it signed just in case something changes. You want to make sure your instance is flagged just in case you need the smallest piece of SDK tech to work, please. All right, let's get back on topic. Borrower docs done right. If you're in sales, which I was for a very long time, one of the things that's your job as a loan officer assistant processor, you're chasing docs. You're a go fetch dog. You're a person that your job is just go fetch. That's it. And what you're trying to fetch is anything that your file is going to need for that, either to validate that pre-approval, right? If you actually want to live up to that word, or to make sure that you can get, God help you, a one-touch underwrite clear to close. I know it's an elusive dream, but it is possible. Mostly you can define, what documents you need from the borrower as soon as possible. So one of the things that I want to encourage that you understand are within workflow rules are the ability to do automated document requests and automated document sends. So this is all about borrower docs done right. In most borrower-facing pieces of technology, a document request is a task, not to be confused with tasks that we use in Encompass, okay? A task is something for the borrower to do. Typically, the borrower needs to do one of two things. Number one, they need to e-sign something. Number two, they need to upload something that was requested. Simple enough. So when we talk about triggering events, obviously you can pick whatever's here. If you're not familiar with workflow rules, please get familiar with them. Anything I could do to help with that training or knowledge, please let me know. And the result here, I want to start with document requests first. Notice it's a single action. And so when I use this within my imaginary company that is yet to be completed, when you come down into this, what I'm going to be sourcing is obviously 1003. I'm not requesting that, right? That's a silly thing. But I am going to request maybe every file needs, maybe they need bank statements, right? And so if you select e-folder attachment, you're sending it. If you select needed, you're requesting it. So that's what's happening. So it's the same action. And so what I'm doing with all of my workflow rules, right? When we go back into here, when I go into my workflows, if I have a file that gets started with this workflow ID, I'm going to make sure that this is configured properly because I know exactly what this workflow is. Hopefully that's making sense for you. So when you think about connecting these dots, because I can create as many different workflows as I want across many different sites, administratively, how do I make sure that I get the correct document out? Maybe I'm doing a DSCR loan over here. Well, I sure as heck don't want to ask them for pay stubs. Right? That wouldn't make any sense. Maybe it's a purchase workflow versus a refinance, and I want to ask them for an agreement of sale. Or maybe I want to ask them for the realtor, if they're using one, real estate agent's contact info or attorney's information, et cetera. Hopefully you guys get the idea. This is how you do document requests correctly. I know that there are, not to call out names, so I'm not going to do that, but there are other solutions out there, other POSs that you cannot dynamically create specific document requests automatically. That's where this is powerful. That's why I'm hell-bent on using this over anything else, because it's native and I know exactly what's coming through because I planned for it so I can do this. If anybody has any questions on this, again, this methodology or this use case, let me know. And so you can continue within the same thing. Now, bank statement's one thing, and I'm going to select all borrowers, right? Because that's who I want to go out to and come back from. But what if I want to send them a welcome letter? Don't know if everybody knows this about Encompass, so if you're learning this for the first time, let me know. Raise your hand if this is the first time you're hearing this. But when you go through and I select, let's just say hey, Richie, thanks. If I wanted to do a welcome letter, right? So let's just say that I don't think I have one in here, so that would be too helpful. But if you go through and you do a, let's see if I've got one. I'm going to call this, I'm going to do this here. So I want to do a custom print form, and let's see if I can find one real quick. So if we've got a, let's just pretend it's this one here for a second, just because it's easy to see. So if you've got a file in here where you are sending a request for a document, right? This is truly needed. This says source needed, but I'm going to ask you to understand that this is probably tied to a custom print form because it's an acknowledgement, right? So in our Encompass environments, administratively, we create needed things that are mapped to custom print forms. Everybody does this, right? This is not new, but for the sake of illustration, see if I can get this over here. So what we're talking about here is acknowledgement of receipt of closing docs, right? And so if we come over into our e-folder settings, this is the setup that I'm making for you. So e-folder documents, acknowledgement of closing disclosure, it's set to needed. I'm going to do, let's see if I can find a custom form here. We'll do custom ARM disclosure. We'll go back and do that one. Let's do custom ARM disclosure instead, because I want you to understand what's going on here. So if I come down into custom ARM disclosure, this guy, see where it says custom? That's what I'm looking for. Apply. That guy right there is a needed document mapped to a custom print form. When you send this out to the borrower as a request, because it's mapped to a custom print form, it will send the custom print form to the borrower. Now, if there's no e-signature tag on it, it will simply ask it to be printed, signed, and returned. But if you pretend this says welcome letter, If it, welcome to Bailey Financial. If I put an e-signature sticker on there because I want them to acknowledge it, they'll still come through as an e-signed document. Anybody want to guess what that automatically does? Not only does it send the document, not only does it require the e-signature, but remember, to e-sign, they have to do what? They have to e-consent. So what this strategy does for me is this takes away my entire problem of my sales team not having e-consent before we send out those initial disclosures. Thanks, Archie. You got it right. E-consent. And so by doing this, I can create a welcome letter. I can send over the request for the documents that I want, broken down by workflow ID. And I can make sure that this happens automatically at whatever triggering event I want. Typically, I would do file started. One of the things I can also do in here is called a nested action. So maybe the email address that the borrower put in fails. So now on failure, I can do a notification to my team to say, hey, FYI, there was a failure on the sending request documents for the bail, for the Smith file that came in. Go do your thing. Or maybe on success, right? I want to create another one that says nested action. And this one is on success, right? Checkbox is probably really hard to see on your screen, but that's a little checkbox icon, and that's an X icon. So success, failure. So on this one, on success, I want this to also be a task that says, go get the stuff from the borrower. Okay, I don't think I have request document. I'll just do borrower information. So when I go ahead and save this now, that was dumb. But when I go ahead and create this task, what I'm going to be facing is on success, I have a task for my loan officer that was set up in the task configuration to go follow up on the documents if they've not been received after a day. And on fail, I've got an email going to the loan officer it was assigned to say, hey, there was a problem sending out documents. Go check the loan file and send. So this is just one example of how to leverage workflow rules to result in, set the result to sending or requesting or sending documents. Because I've got this happening, depending on how I want to do it, I can also come through and come over to ordering a service, right? And so this ordering a service, depending on what we have for automation set up, right? I can do flood if I want. I can also come in here if I'm running this correctly and assigning a role, depending on what the state is. So if I want to assign that to a particular group, or what the workflow ID is, if I want that to go to a particular group or person. These are all things that are native. And so the whole point of today's part of this workshop is, number one, there is a ton of people. When I say ton, I mean like 90% of companies have not started to really leverage Encompass Web, and certainly have not thought about how to use the process of going from Consumer Connect into Encompass Web workflow rules to manage these kinds of things. Now, in our admin training, I go into detail about all this stuff, and I talk about how to leverage notification, how to configure and leverage that, as well as configuring and leveraging scheduler templates and workflow tasks, etc. Hopefully, you're finding the training that ICE provides adequate, or the resources on Mastering Encompass adequate. If there's ever any questions I can answer for this, please let me know. But the point of this part of the company is the borrower applied. We received the application. Now I can come through and automatically send a request documents, right? That's what we talked about. And then have a nested action of create a task if it was successful of that send a request, and then obviously if it fails. Does anyone have any questions on that or challenges on that? I'd love to hear from you on how that works for you. I've got one more little piece to go through, and then we'll get ready for July 22nd, which is talking about initial disclosures and really prepping that file for processing. Alex is coming in. So I don't see any I don't see any questions. Again, I appreciate everybody just kind of absorbing. Is this the first time you've heard? Is again, nobody raised their hand, which is pretty cool. I just want to make sure. Is this the first time everybody understood that if you request a document from a borrower that is mapped to a custom or standard print form that has an e-signature, it'll actually transmit over as an e-signature request, prompting e-consent, like Archie said, as well as also forcing that borrower to go back into your Consumer Connect portal. If that's not new for you, great. I go through a lot of different workflow reviews, again, for folks that are not using Consumer Connect, and I ask them, how do they do this? And they've got to go through a lot of extra steps manually to get that done for their borrowers, which, I show them how to do this. All right, so the last part that I want to talk about here is in the actual loan file, right? And so when I go through, and I'm a loan officer in my company, my sales team is using Encompass Web, hands down. And when I come over into Encompass Web, I created this, where am I? I created this right here. I created this workflow example specifically to make sure that my loan officers are efficient as possible, completing that application, making sure everything's in the file. So, we're landing on open tasks. So I want to make sure that I've got my task list running for my team, so they know exactly what's potentially missing, what they need to address to get that file into processing. So it's not a matter of what fields, right? If we need to go in because there's something to be seen on the 1003, they've got the task and the description to be done, and then they come over and they can see exactly what needs to be reviewed, right? That's simple. And so this idea of task-based workflow is legit. It's real. And when we look at this, I want you to understand that this is not complicated to build. You just have to know your workflow. Like, I know you guys are sick of me saying that, but it's just the way it is. And so what I also did for my loan officers is to make sure that they've got the ability for this quick qual. I've shown this publicly in the community for quite some time now. But the reason why I show this is because I want you to understand and appreciate the fact that as a salesperson, when I need to come into the application, I need to be able to get to information very quickly. We know this because in desktop, what do? We build summary forms because we want everything on one place. The difference is I don't believe in scrolling. I believe that if you can't fit it on the screen, it doesn't belong there, because I can simply add another card and I can walk through. So this is what I'm doing for my team, guys. Quite honestly, this is what I'm doing for a lot of companies. So if I can do this for your company, let me know. It's not complicated. We do workflow review and then we get these things implemented. What I want to talk to you about, though, is the application. And so in the application itself, this is the URLA 1003 from part 1 straight through part 4. And it's done in this way so you can seamlessly go. This is native, gang. This is not, I did not create this. I'm not going to take credit for this genius. This was somebody at Ice Mortgage Technology figuring out how cards worked, and they somehow intelligently broke this down. And you'll see over on this left-hand nav, this is specific for loan officers, right? And so I'm a super, so I can see all these other custom item sets is what they're called. But I can create all these different custom item sets for whatever persona that I want, as well as whatever loan type that I want. Right? These are just some examples. But the idea is, the reason why I come into web is because I want to be able to have my loan officer quickly go through the application. If they need to come over to services, if they need to order MI, to quickly go in there, right? So if you haven't seen MI Center, what are you waiting for? Like, your MI company should be screaming at you to get to MI Center. So you can compare all quotes directly in Encompass and import the factors right into the file. But then underwriting, I'm leveraging dual AUS. And I'm also keeping my eye on rep and warrant tracker, because why not? And then, of course, when I get over into more services over in here, I can get over into all services and quickly run whatever I need to run, right? Super simple. By the way, this is what's coming to desktop from web in 24.3. If you didn't read the release notes yet, surprise, you're no longer going to have services management services tab to worry about, because again, that's all SDK, right? This is why you need this is why I said in the beginning, when I got to Encompass Web, you need to get all your vendors, your service vendors into EPC and adjust that accordingly, because this is now going to be live in desktop this time next month, just about 4 weeks. And so my team is coming through, and they're just very easily, seamlessly going through here. If you've got automated conditions enabled, my team already sees what conditions are needed based upon the data in the loan file that came in. And they can do what they need to do because I've updated their condition types to allow that particular that particular role to do what they need to do in this condition, whether it's updating a status or adding a document to the actual condition. This is legit. And why do I trust my sales team to do this? Because that's what I'm paying them for. For those that are as old as I am, especially if you're in the Northeast, you would have remembered a company called GMAC. And I talked about this like just very quickly in a comment on LinkedIn. Again, I live on LinkedIn. It's my destiny, I guess. GMAC was unique at the time. This is going back to 03, 2000 to like 05, 06, before a crash. And GMAC had one person doing everything. They would intake the file, they'd process, underwrite, close, fund the loan. One person. And you might be saying, holy God, why would you let that happen? That's such a conflict. Well, it worked until it didn't work. And so why am I bringing this up here is because in Encompass, when it comes to enhanced conditions, again, and talking about application borrower docs done right, I need to make sure I know what conditions are still open that I need to collect documents for. And that's where I'm going to come back to within my tools section here. That's where I'm going to come back to workflow tasks. Because if I know what documents I needed, right? We already went through here, not there, but we already went through the documents needed. And if it's a condo and I don't have the docs in the E folder, I can automatically request condo docs, or at least the condo association information. And so this is what I want to bring, this is kind of how I want to just cap today's workshop. And again, have you guys talk about it, whether it's now or later. But I really want you to appreciate that now's the time to reevaluate your workflow for what's happening. This is not just moving from desktop to web and you're going to carry all that baggage with you. Look at your workflow for what's happening. Today's conversation, so June 10th, we went, talking about leads, and then I went into qualifying those leads. Today, I've got an application in, and I'm starting to collect documents from a borrower, presuming it's a pre-qual, presuming maybe I've hit TRID on this thing. The next workshop's going to be taking this to the next step of producing initial disclosures and processing, preparing for processing. And the more you're going to get into the concept of leveraging what's native to Encompass in this workflow, the better off you're going to be as an organization, not only from a streamlined approach, but also from a management approach as an administrator. One of the biggest challenges that we all have is managing third-party tech. Like, you just don't know what it's doing sometimes. And so what I want to make sure is that when I run my workflow, like, I'm an absolute tyrant, that I want to know what's going on in my system, because guess who's getting the phone call when stuff breaks? Me. And so that's why I'm doing this workshop series for you and for your company to hopefully get something inspired from it, and really leverage everything that you can in Consumer Connect as a way to get a borrower to apply. I've used Consumer Connect for consumer loans, for equity and non-equity loans, for commercial and residential. Again, you can do whatever you want with this thing. So for those that are in credit unions and banks, think about if your bank wants to save some extra money and puts additional loan types into Encompass. It could save you a lot of money. It could also consolidate your resources and your workflows. There's an opportunity there. I've done it. It works. Any questions, let me know. You also have the ability, of course, like we talked about, using the native mobile app. Can you take an application on that mobile app? No, that's not what it's for. It's literally there so the borrower can e-sign on their phone and the borrower can upload pictures on their phone of the documents that you need. That's it. which is beautiful because that's all I really want. And then when you get into the actual file gets submitted, what can you do with your workflow rules? What can you do with your tasks? What can you do with schedulers? Like all of this stuff. I could talk your ear off for hours about how to configure this properly for your workflow, but you know your workflow, or at least you should know your workflow. And then, of course, when you get into customization and you get into custom input forms, what I would, if you're not familiar with this, like earlier today on the admin class, I asked that there was 18 or 20 people there. I said, who has not yet gone into here? Most of the class raised their hand that they've not come in here and created any web-based custom input forms. So I said to them, I said, listen, go into here and copy from the existing form and just go look at all the standard input forms. There's a ton of them. Check them out. ICE has already done all the hard work. Like copying and pasting is A-okay. So leverage that, explore this area, and make sure that when you go through, at the very least, figure out a reason why this does not work for you. Like I said in the very beginning, when you go through, at least with me, I'm always thinking, why won't this work? It's not because I'm pessimistic. It's because I want to know where my challenges are as soon as possible. Because if I can't overcome the challenges, then I need to take a different path. But if it's me just getting in my own way from using something, that's my fault. And so that's my problem I got to get over. So that's why I ask it that way. And I hope this workshop is making some sense for you guys. I hope it's helping out in some way. And if you have any questions, let me know. That's what I had for you today. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm here for any open Q&A if you want, or if you're done, feel free to have a good rest of your day. Thank you for coming. I'll leave it open for a couple questions here if you have any. If not, catch you on the next one. You got it, Sean. You got it, Lubin. Thanks, Archie. You got it, Melissa. All right, guys, I'm going to close it down. Looks like no questions. So enjoy the rest of your day and your week. Good luck. We'll see you.